Could you talk first about Nick Foles,
Yeah.
sort of what you see in him now?
Um, he's always been a pretty calm, cool customer. You look obviously at what he was able to accomplish last year, and certainly what he's been able to accomplish this year. Here, during the latter part of the season, um, he he makes plays, and I think he's got a lot of confidence in himself. I think their team seems to have a lot of confidence in him as well. We played them in the playoffs. What was that, 2013,
Hmm.
when he was the starter there with Chip Kelly, and obviously they had a great team then, and he was playing well then too. And I know from there, I guess Rams, Chiefs, and then back to the Eagles. But I remember seeing him play in high school. Our the 10-year anniversary for my high school football team state championship was 2006. So it was actually during the season. It was a Friday night. I remember flying back and kind of being part of that homecoming experience. And starting quarterback for my high school at the time was Nick Foles. So um, funny how things play out, but he's done a phenomenal job.
He took a lot of criticism in the offseason for sort of being okay, being a backup. What was sort of your take on that? And does he have a personality that maybe is a little different than a lot of quarterbacks?
Um, like I said, I think he's a pretty calm, cool, collected guy. I think for him, any of that stuff, I'm sure, was water off a duck's back. I mean, he doesn't seem to be bothered by that kind of thing. I didn't really follow their team in the off season, other than you saw some of the moves that they make, and you're like, man, those guys are gonna be really, really good, which they are. So, um, other than that, I stay in touch with him a little bit, um, and have been happy for his success. He's obviously worked very hard for it.
Drew, this is the second week in a row we asked you about that Austin Westlake quarterback.
Yeah, there you
What is
go.
the deal with that
I don't know,
factor?
man. Something in that Colorado River water, I guess.
Drew, given the degree of difficulty it is to get to this point, do you appreciate these moments now that you're getting older?
I mean, I always appreciate these moments, but just you never know how many more there are. So you just stay in the moment, enjoy it as much as possible.
This secondary, it's a lot of patchwork guys the Eagles have. How much better have they gotten? What have they done differently, maybe, than the last time you played them?
Well, every game plan is or every team they play is very game plan specific. Jim Schwartz has done a great job with that defense. Since he's been there, and obviously they've had a lot of guys banged up this year, and which he deserves even more credit. Done a phenomenal job with the way that they've had to, shift and move at times, and a lot of guys playing different positions and being shuffled around. But I think they've done a great job with it. When we played them early in the season, they just lost one of their corners, and so they had to shuffle, and then they lost one or two in the game. So I think you see them over the last 4 or 5 weeks, coming into their own. Again, each team they play, there's a different game plan, but whatever they do, they do it well. They execute it well.
They've said that this isn't about revenge or anything that happened in November, but given Malcolm and the gesture, is that just kind of all talk? Do you think they'll use that game in any way as motivation?
I assume that they'll come in as motivated as ever, just like we're going to come in as motivated as ever. So I don't think anything that happened previously has any bearing on this game. Just two really good teams about to play in a playoff game.
And Drew, how do you explain the disparity in your all's road and home playoff record? I mean, it's 5-0 and 1-5. Is it just the dome? How would you describe that?
And there's a lot that goes into those games. To me, it doesn't matter whether we're playing at home or away. I still expect to play the same way.
Was the last 5 weeks of the season a little rough on the offensive line in particular? I mean, I know they had guys moving around and banged up, and did you get a sense of how they kind of hung together that period, and then seeing them all out there today?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Oh, listen, man. They're the heart and soul. They're those guys set the tone. They set the tempo for every game. Obviously, it begins and ends with them. In everything that we do as an offense. So, yeah, the last couple of weeks, I think anytime you have guys that are banged up, it's difficult, especially since you don't really carry that many, offensive linemen, and so guys have to be flexible, man, and man, they're such a durable group, playing with a lot of dents and dings, and and yet, man, they battled through. It shows their toughness, and I think these last 2 weeks have been really beneficial for them. Just a lot of guys to to be on the mend and come out feeling a lot better than they did 3 weeks ago.
Drew, you find something of a kindred spirit in Darren Sproles. I know you mentioned him being one of those elite guys as far as work ethic. You still train with him and stuff.
Yeah, he's my guy, man. He'll always be my guy. He's a stud. One of the greatest teammates I've ever had the chance to play with. I've said it before. I think he's a once in a lifetime player. And what he's been able to accomplish now over the course of his career, for the type of player he was, man, just full speed all the time. That running back position takes a beating, and what he was able to do running the football, catching the football, in the return game. I mean, he's just been the consummate teammate. I love working with him in the off season. He makes me better. A great friend, so I mean, I always root for him.
They drew you 6 days from turning 40. Does that make something even more special?
I stopped counting birthdays a long time ago. Nah, I mean, it doesn't make a difference at this point. Maybe once we get to the off season, it'll set in that I'm 40.
What are the specific unique to him threats that Malcolm Jenkins presents that on the field secondary?
Well, Sean has described him as the Swiss Army knife. I think that's a good description. Just a guy that can do everything. We drafted him in the first round as a corner, so he played corner here for I think the first 2 years, and then ended up gravitating to free safety. But his versatility, his ability to come down and cover a slot receiver, to cover a tight end, to cover a running back, to pressure, but more importantly, he's just a smart, tough football player, instinctive. He gets everyone lined up. When there's confusion, everybody looks to Malcolm, and so I respect him a ton. I loved him as a teammate too. Those were two guys during that run that we had here that will always be two of my favorite teammates. Yep.
Thanks, man.